to A Fat Perspective. This is the podcast for all bodies, and we talk a lot about issues that are for people. And I like to say this is the podcast for anyone who currently or formerly identified as fat. So with us today, we have Ryan Perry. She is a professional bra fitter, which we sorely need more of in this world, as well as a plus size model and who's also studying psychology. So, hi, Ryan. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So, I am so curious about how you got into professional bra fitting. And that is not something that I think people wake up and go, you know what? I'm going to wake up. I'm going to go get a job helping women find good support.
Yeah, so I don't know if you're familiar with the Plus Bus. They are a plus size consignment store here in Los Angeles. And I was in there talking to one of the employees about it. I was like, I don't know what to do. And she was like, oh, there's this bra company that's hiring fitters. You should go interview and see what happens. That's kind of how I fell into it, was just talking to another plus size person and finding this job. What's cool about like this particular bra store is it's not like a retail store where you walk in and browse. Like, you walk in and we work with each person individually, like for at least 45 minutes when you come in for your first time, talking about issues that you're having with your bras, talking about colors and styles, like how you want to express yourself. Like, there is like a huge emotional component that goes into it. It's not just like browsing.
For people listening, this is how I met Ryan. I actually went to Jenette's Bras because I needed to actually find bras for a boudoir shoot, and nothing I ever find at any of the national plus size stores ever work. I order stuff on Torrid. I don't know. I think everyone hates on Torrid, and I think a lot of it is well-founded because I literally ordered something that was my size, and the underwire literally cut into my body. I was like, so did we think this through? And then on Amazon, I would measure, order, and again, it would come. Most of it would fit, and then the underwear would again do this thing, and I'm like, "What?" So,
Yeah.
So that's why I wandered into Jenette, and it was a totally different experience. I've never been fit by a fitter without getting measured. So, what is that like?
Yeah. So every plus size person knows when you look at a size chart online, you take it with a grain of salt a lot of times, and you're like, well, maybe my measurements are like this, but will it fit differently in person? Like, I don't know. And like getting fit without a tape measure kind of combats that like issue. You can't account for where the breasts are placed. Some people are more full on top, more full on bottom. People have more space in between their breasts, or there's more space from like their collarbone and down. And all those factor into size, but also factor into the brand that I'll pull for you. Different brands fit really differently. Just like regular clothes, just ends up being a lot more effective. And when you're in person and you can kind of try stuff on, it makes that process a lot easier. So, yeah.
And as you were saying that, it just occurred to me, and this is really new to me, not really that new, but it's something I constantly have to remind myself that boobs come in different shapes.
Yes, they do. And that shape, like as we age, your boob shape changes if you've had a child, if you're nursing, if you've had breast cancer, if you're a trans woman, like all those kinds of things factor into breast shape and changes we might have.
Mm-hmm. So I'm super curious, like you fit a lot of people for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
What is that like for women? Because I have this theory that most women don't get fit right for their bras.
Yeah, usually someone's really excited about not having the tape measure, or people are really doubtful and not sure that I can really do that. So once I get the size down and I put someone in a bra that they really love, like I see people's like eyes widen, and we're wearing masks, so it's kind of hard to like kind of gauge what kind of things are going on. But I like can see their eyes widen, and that's when I'm like, try on your shirt again. Like, you're gonna look totally different. Like, you've never seen your breasts this way. And it can be like a really exciting thing, especially for people who have not had access to a fitting before or have had access to bras in their size. And I was saying earlier, like a lot of times, especially plus size people have never had access to beautiful lingerie. It's like something that I find a lot of value in is expressing myself through my clothes. And that also like to what I wear underneath my clothes. I've never had the opportunity to do that before working at Jenette's. And that can be a really transformative experience.
I know earlier I asked about like people fitting. Have you had moments or stories you can tell about people like who got put into a bra that actually made them look good for the first time, and what it was like for them, and then what it was like for you to be the facilitator of that experience?
Right. I guess like I think the most like fun experiences are when older women come in who are like in their 60s and they've never had a bra that fits them. It's hard for me to even think of a story because it happens like very often. I'd say like at least once I have someone come in that's been like, I've never been fitted for a bra before and I'm 60 something. And usually like they're coming in really ill-fitting bras and they're uncomfortable, especially when if your band is too loose and you have a bigger cup size, that puts a lot of stress on your shoulders. Like the straps are really weighing down.
Some people have that thing where they permanently have that indent on their shoulders from the bra. Is that from the... Well, anyway.
Yeah, exactly. From like a loose band. And I find that most women of all ages have like too loose of a band, but when you're older and you've been wearing a loose band for so long, like your shoulders are in a lot of pain. And when I put someone in a bra for the first time and their shoulders don't hurt as much, like that is just really wonderful. Like I can't imagine just being in pain all the time and all of a sudden being like, oh, it was this easy the whole time. I just didn't know this was here. Like,
well, it kind of goes back to a little bit of the struggle of being in a bigger breast. Like really things are not available for you.
Exactly. Yeah.
So did you also have that experience yourself of like having bad bras and then having a good bra and I'll be like, okay, my life is different?
Yeah. So I just always only had access to ugly bras. I actually like have a smaller cup size, like in like relative to other women. And so when I put on a bra for the first time at Jenette's, I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know like I could wear this shape. I didn't know it could look this pretty. I went home and tried on all my clothes and I was like, oh my gosh, I can like wear this bra for this outfit and this bra shape works better for this outfit. And it's totally kind of transformed.
Well, hold on. I want to pause you for a second because you just said something that I never think about. And the reason why I don't think about it is because I have big boobs and it's hard to find bras. You just said you have different bra for different outfits?
Yes, I do.
Tell me more about this. I feel like I'm about to get an education.
So there's a few different kinds of like bra styles. There's like a full cut bra, there's a balk, a plunge, strapless, and I will wear like a full cut bra on me every day. If I'm wearing a t-shirt, just like a higher cut dress, that works really well. There's also like different styles of full cut bras, like some that are like, it's hard to do this like not visually, but there's like a 3-part sewn cup and it kind of looks like a balconette, but it's still full coverage. So it kind of gives like a vintage look. It kind of can look a little like cone-ish, but like not in a bad way. And then there's also ones like full cut bras that give more of like a teardrop, like natural shape, and that can work really well for certain outfits. And then I will use a balk if I have like a low cut dress or a square neck dress. That works really well.
I'm just blown because because it's like, for me, it's like, oh, it fits. I'm lucky. So I didn't even think like, oh, maybe at some point we want to think about how we want our boobs to look in what we're wearing. And then we would wear a bra to support that.
Like it's just like clothes. Like I know I like go to the thrift store, I go to a flea market, and sometimes I'll buy something just because it's my size and not because I actually like it or it suits my wardrobe in any way. I'm like, oh, I'm lucky to have found something in my size. I feel like I've treated bras a similar way, and I didn't know that there was a way for me to own bras that feel like myself and complement my wardrobe in a really wonderful and special way.
You just said something, I think, and I'm assuming a lot of people who are plus size, or I personally like to use the word fat very clearly because I don't like that it's like a weaponized word. People are like, oh my God, you're not fat. I'm like, have we met?
Yeah.
I was like, this is fat.
I'm fat. I'm not ugly though. So don't get it twisted.
And it's not a bad thing. It's just, we're just stating facts, right? Exactly. So you just said like bras that make me feel like me. And I am operating, and I don't know if you agree or disagree. I feel like a lot of fat people, or even maybe not even, and it could be anyone who doesn't fall into like the idealized norm, right? Like like someone who's too tall or too short could also feel this. It's like we don't always go after things that we love because we feel blessed to even be included.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that.
So what do you think we would need to do to change that opinion on people, for people? Like, what could we do to inspire people to be like, hey, you don't have to just be grateful.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it can come from an internal place, but I think first it needs to come from like a systemic change.
Mm-hmm.
That means like brands being more inclusive. Like the more brands are inclusive, like the more choices we have. And that means there's a wider array to express ourselves with certain clothing items. And that kind of comes from a systemic place. Like we can't like change that ourselves. Like we can seek out brands and we can seek out like self-love and we can do those kinds of things. But there's only so much we can do before we kind of hit a wall and there's no clothes like this for me or something like that. So it feels like it's a combination of like working on yourself and like finding the courage and the boldness to wear something that feels like you, but also there needs to be those changes that the thing you want to wear is actually available to you.
Yeah, because it's like, yeah, like I think that's really interesting because it's like then if you're constantly having to dig through piles of garbage to find something that doesn't look bad, at some point you're gonna feel like, ugh. And things are better. And I still sometimes get conflicted. Like Athleta, I love. Like you can walk into the store, but then they're connected to Gap and Old Navy. And I don't know if you know this, like Old Navy pulled plus size clothing out of stores this year, and I'm like, but you have Athleta.
Right. Yeah. It's so strange. And like sometimes like the most ethical choice is like choosing a brand that aligns with all of your values, but sometimes it's a little bit like voting where like
It's like voting.
everything, but like as long as the important things are there, like maybe just take it like
Right. And yeah. Do you also find plus size fashion to be frustrating? Because I do.
I find plus size fashion to be frustrating, and I especially find in person plus size shopping to be the worst thing.
What in person?
Like if
And exactly, and like what in person other than Athleta? Where do you
I
go for in person?
Maybe Nordstrom's sometimes has plus size in store. I also am kind of on the cusp between plus size and straight size. I am a small fat person, so I can wear like an extra large sometimes in certain brands. So I'll go in person and try my luck, and then it's like weird and things don't fit right. And it's so frustrating. And then the whole thing where it's like, oh, we have your size online, but you'll have to order it and pay shipping and then try it on, and then it might not work. And you're like, why don't you just have it here? Like you have the medium. Where's the 2X, please?
Right. And it's interesting that that model still works for them because statistic after statistic after statistic keep telling the fashion industry, hey, Americans are getting fatter. The average size is blah blah blah. Like it's no longer like a 6 or a 4 is no longer the average size, but that's the size they like to carry. And I mean, it's just so interesting that that's the model that continues to work for them.
And fat people have always existed. Fat clothing has always existed, and I think that brands continue to deny that. I don't have any research for this, but part of me is not so convinced that Americans are actually getting fatter. I have heard that they changed what the BMI classification of obesity was like back in the 90s. So then all of a sudden, like a huge percentage of people were obese. Like I just am not all that convinced that things have changed that much in our body size and that brands just continue to exclude us. I don't know.
It's just visually like when I go to Asia, because I'm half Taiwanese, so I go to Taiwan and everyone in Taiwan's like this, and people here are bigger. It's like so when I'm in Taiwan, it makes sense to me why there wouldn't be clothes for me, because I would be like they would be catering to one human being out of like 1,000. But here, it's not the case. So anyway, but yeah. I mean, I definitely, and I don't know if you agree, like, I find what they do have to be annoying.
Yeah.
I don't need sassy sayings across my shirt. I also don't need peplum, and I definitely don't need cold shoulders.
Yeah.
Like, like, damn it. So the other thing I was really curious about, because since you work at a intimate store, is what is your opinion about shapewear?
I have mixed feelings. Because like I guess it kind of depends on like intent in a way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, most of the time people are wearing shapewear to achieve a certain idealized and accepted shape. And I'm not really sure how I feel about that morally. I know sometimes people wear shapewear just because they feel more comfortable and they like to feel like compression, and that can feel like soothing for people. I have a silk dress and you can like see my belly button through it, and I just don't like the way that looks, so I'll wear shapewear with it because I don't want to see my belly button like through the silk dress. It's hard for me to like come to a certain opinion on shapewear or not, because also bras can be a similar thing. Like bras are still constructed and shaped to fit a certain beauty standard. So if I'm wearing a bra, like, is that the same thing as wearing shapewear? Like, where do I draw the line? Like, and what's making me feel the best, like, internally is kind of where I navigate that for myself, at least.
The other thing that's interesting to me, actually, as you were saying that, I was thinking about um, just like how, like corsets, right? That's a type of shapewear. The pre-bras, they're super uncomfortable, and bras are also super uncomfortable. And um, shapewear traditionally, because I actually have never worn shapewear as a rule, because I'm like, no, my clothing has to work for my body, not by my body for my clothing. So I guess the thing that's interesting is like, because I want to be body neutral and support body liberation, not body positivity, because that implies there's body negativity and we don't want that. But like, how I'm like, I always wonder like, how can I say, okay, put on shapewear and still be like body neutral?
Right.
Thoughts? Can I? Can't I?
I I have no idea. Like truly, I'm like, it is such a difficult question that I think about really frequently. Um, how I feel about shapewear, and where it like kind of stands for me as far as like fat liberation and body neutrality. I really don't have an answer. I don't know.
Right. And then I think about, and you know, one of our favorite fat icons, Lizzo, like
Hmm.
her big contribution. I was like really excited, and she
Yeah.
dropped shapewear, and I was like,
Right.
why? I mean,
Yeah.
granted, it has a lot of skin color, like different shades, all this stuff. Yay! But like, why shapewear? Ah, I was so disappointed actually when I first heard that. I don't know,
Yeah.
how did you react when you found out
I,
there's
I was
beauty?
disappointed too because I feel like we finally have someone who is like truly like in the limelight, A-list
Mhm.
celebrity who is a fat person. Um, and I it makes me a little sad that like that's the thing that she chose to launch of all the products that she could have slapped her name on and maybe would have been
Yeah.
awesome. It's shapewear, which like you know does make like try to manipulate your body into looking thinner. And that
Hmm.
doesn't seem like something that Lizzo particularly stands for.
Yeah, like of all the things, she could have done swimwear, like clothing. I know clothing's a little bit harder, but like activewear, which is like 2 seconds away from like
Right.
shapewear. Like,
Yeah.
and the other thing um I think about is like, so here's where it's kind of interesting when we talk about manipulation, right?
Hmm.
And I think about like, is it wrong to be like, okay, I will manipulate this whatever it is to get a desired effect or outcome? Like, is that
Right.
so bad? You know?
Yeah. To me, like it doesn't seem bad. It just seems like the best we can do. Like when I think
Yeah.
about sometimes getting dressed and putting on shapewear, I'm like, this is like self protective in a way. Like this is the best I can do with the society that I've been given, and that's
Yeah.
okay. Like I think about certain fat celebrities who have like lost weight and are no longer fat.
Yeah.
There's controversy and people have their own opinions, but at the end of the day, I'm like, they're doing the best they can in a violently fat phobic society, and
Hmm.
I just try to like hold grace for that kind of thing too.
Well, yeah. So, and at
Mm,
the end of the day, I think it's the more awake we can be, about the consequences of our action and what that means, and then to decide whether or not this fight is worth having. Because I, as you were saying, I was thinking about, like, so if I were to put on shapewear and feel good, like, am I adding more language into like the patriarchy and supporting that more? So
right. Anyway, and it's hard to get away from any of it at all. Like, I shave my legs. What does that mean? My hair is long. What does that mean? Like, that's feminine. The makeup I wear, does that, add to the male gaze? Like, at the end of the day, we're trying our best to live in a world that is not only fatphobic, but sexist and racist and homophobic and all of the things that we're trying to navigate.
Yeah. And I guess what I ultimately want, that's me, my wish for the world, is for people to truly feel good about themselves, period. And really be like, hey, like, someone may call you a name or a derogatory term, and then for us to inherently go, no, you may have that opinion, but I am worthy and I have value. And slowly, like you said earlier, for infrastructure and systems to catch up so that everyone has choice and inclusivity. So speaking of like changing the system, you're a model. How did you go from I hate looking at myself in pictures to like, yes, you know what I mean? Like, yes, take pictures of me, all of me. How did you do that?
It feels more neutral than like straight up like I like the word fat vanity. It doesn't feel like exactly fat vanity for me yet.
Fat vanity. Tell me more. I'm intrigued. Yeah. I've never heard that term before.
I heard it on TikTok and I am so sad I cannot remember the username, but there's this plus size creator that talks about fat vanity all the time and how it is really important for fat people in real life and on the internet to just like say they look good, to say they look hot, and to feel good and hot. And so when I think about modeling, it doesn't feel like that kind of like fat vanity piece. Like modeling feels more like, I don't know, that transformation felt more neutral. Like it was from a place of like loathing to a place like, oh, I'm like on this website and this is cool, and it maybe doesn't feel like fat vanity exactly, but it just feels good to be representing a certain body type that hasn't been represented in the past.
How did you do it though?
It's just I think I wasn't ready to like I was still in a like not a great place when I started modeling, and I think it just like forced me to accept it really quick, like what I look like and what I look like on camera, and that is good, or really more like just a neutral. It's not good or bad, I guess. I don't have like a methodology for like where I am today. I think it's just like I just started taking photos, and I started having opportunities, and just like kind of, it feels like just getting over the fear of it. It's like I just went skydiving and now I'm good. Cool. I'm all right.
So here are different things. Like, I guess for me, because I've always been told your face is pretty, but your body's fat. So I have a leg up because I have like partial beauty being bestowed upon me. So that's like half the battle, right? I'm like, well, part of me is, but like for me, like I find pieces of myself I really like. So I love the way my lips feel. Like they're just so soft and delicious and full. So I'm always like, if anything fails, this is freaking gorgeous. I can really just like be in my skin and like touching myself to like love what's here. And to give you a context, like 3 years ago when I did this, I literally was like, like I couldn't touch myself. So it's just like, be like, yes, beauty, yes, because I said so. So do you have a body part like that? Like your lips, you're like, yeah. Vanity.
For me, I think it's my jawline, which sounds kind of silly.
It's not silly. It is not silly. Talk about your jawline. Talk about your flat ass jawline, please.
I have a very soft jawline, and I have like a cute little double chin when I smile. And I did not used to find that desirable. I was just in Italy, so I went to a hell of a lot of museums, and I saw like all these paintings of like these Renaissance ladies with these like really, really beautiful soft jawlines, and like pronounced cheeks. And I'm like, oh, I kind of look
Yeah.
like that. And someone
Yes,
decided to
you
paint
do.
time like painting that. Like, and I think that's actually really beautiful. And like now I'm working on taking more photos of the side profile because that's kind of a part that like
Yeah.
I love, but I'm still like, you know, kind of in that process of like learning to really like love and just like thinking about Renaissance ladies and their soft jawlines makes me feel like I love that part of myself.
I mean, you do have that. You do like I could see that. Like as you're talking, like yeah, you look like you look like one of those beautiful French women in portraits with like kind of like even your curls and everything. But
My hair.
but like what you just said is literally why representation is so important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? Like you
Exactly.
see yourself immortalized. You see
Right.
yourself like adulated and then you're like, "Oh, well, good for you. I can't
Yeah.
wait to see more of your jawline." So I love it. So the other thing that I often I talk about a lot is like which kind of started is body parts or that we love or have stories about or things happen that to a certain body part of ours that really transform our lives. Like, so like do you have any like stories like you're like oh this body part or this feature of mine there's some fun
Yeah.
story attached.
Yeah. I grew up as a thin person. I have PCOS, and once I hit puberty, I started to gain weight pretty rapidly. But even like when I was like a thin person, I've always had like big hips and a big thighs. I remember in middle school, a girl like was drawing pictures of people, and then she drew a picture of me, and she like gave me like really big hips and like really big thighs. And I was like, I didn't know I looked different than everybody. This is weird. And like, I guess from then on, I was so insecure. And like, she told me that my thighs jiggled when I walked. Like, she was like, it was just a really not fun situation. And I was so like, nervous to walk places. I was so nervous to sit down in chairs. I was like, I was always comparing how much space I took up in a chair compared to somebody else in the classroom. And it's been like that even as I've become like a fat person. I still have like big hips and big thighs comparatively to my waist. And now it's like one of my favorite things about myself. Like I really like having big hips. I think like I love wearing dresses and skirts and having like a skirt that is like cinched at the waist and then my big hips like make it kind of flare out in a really fun way. Like I love the way that like clothes look on that part of my body. And I think about like how judgmental that girl was and I'm like you don't even see like the beauty that like a different type of body can have, and that's unfortunate, but it makes me glad that like I have been able to find that beauty in of myself.
Aren't people just ruthless? And
Yeah.
they don't and what people don't realize is that words really I mean, I know people say stick and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me. Bullshit. Words are the
Bullshit.
work.
My broken arm, I'm not upset about anymore, but I am upset about that girl saying that awful
Right?
thing to me.
I broke an arm. I'm not mad about that anymore. But yeah. And then I totally get what you're saying, like the whole measuring thing. Mine was like, my stomach must be underneath my boobs. And so
Yeah.
how did you then transfer the my hips too big to my hips are gorgeous in the skirt? Was it just by looking? Like how
Yeah.
did you get that?
Something that's really interesting about like my journey as a fat person is that I have not always been a fat person. And I think the thing that actually made me accept my body was becoming fat and know like when you're a fat person, like yes, you like still have to live within society standards, but it's so different. Like I am like not I'm pretty far from what the norm, you know, what like idealized beauty should be. That like it doesn't like affect me as much as it did when I was a thin person. And so as soon as I like let go of like thinness, like accepted my fatness, I suddenly saw like much more beauty in myself than I did when I was thin, which is kind of a weird thing to experience. And it's like kind of liberating to be fat in a way because you're not like held down in the same ways that you are when you're thin. Yeah, it's kind of like, well, I'm never going to be the thing that you want me to be, so why don't I just love myself anyways?
Right. But it's to a point like like the pressure, it's not just for like this kind of pressure is not unique just to for fat people, but I think like you said, there's sometimes a little bit more freedom in that. You're like, well,
Yeah, there's like these weird, like kind of pros and cons. Not pros and cons might be the wrong word to use,
yeah.
but like I see so much more, I don't know, pressure on thin people to be even thinner, and there's pressure on fat people, but it like I don't know how else to describe this. Like there's obviously
Well,
like fat affects fat people, but it just feels like in the self-love internal journey, like being fat has been helpful for me for loving myself. It hasn't been helpful in the way like systemic issues have like affected me, like finding clothes, like, you know, finding adequate health care, like those kinds of things. But I've been able to find more beauty in myself since being a fat person than being a thin person.
well, it's so interesting. I too consume a lot of TikTok, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
remember who said the soundbite, but it has always stuck with me. And you're like, look at me, I'm a fat, I'm a fat person loving herself. Haha! No wonder thin people hate me because we're all so intrinsically. I think part of it is like we've been taught to be fat phobic, so
Mm-hmm.
so it's like even the thin people hate, like not all thin people, right? Like come on, like I can't speak in generalities, right? Like some thin people also hate, like they hate like the potential fatness in themselves. So then like that's why
Yes.
then when they see this healthy confident fat person, they're like, screw you, I'm suffering and
I
you're not.
know. It's like I feel like I'm still like having little moments all the time to bring me to that kind of like self love place. I think I went to this body positive workshop, and I interacted with other fat people, and we did this little sculpture class thing. So they handed us like a little thing of clay, and they said just like sculpt a body. Like, it can be yours or it can be anybody's. And I just remember like sculpting a body that looked like mine, and like seeing everyone else's sculptures and kind of talking about that, and that felt just like healing. And I just saw really beautiful examples of self-love from other fat people that I had not seen before. And I feel like that particular event started kind of like turning the cogs in my brain a little bit. I think also like I said, I'm 22. I'm pretty young. Moving away from home, and just like becoming an adult and having my own opinions on things has been able to kind of lend itself to more self love. Like you know, I think any person who's grown up in the 2000s, the 90s, like had a mom that put them on diets or maybe put them in Weight Watchers or Jenny Craig or whatever kind of thing. And I am, my mom also did that. And like moving away from home and being able to like make my own choices, and then like finding value in myself and not feeling pressure from like being at home all the time and trying to, you know, fit a certain standard of beauty that like my parents have set out. Also kind of started to transform that for me. But I just feel like every day, every day, I am like learning to love myself more and more. And that's like with the help of therapy, with the help of other fat
Wow.
friends, with the help of being, you know, connected to fat creators on the internet, um, that kind of thing. Sorry, I rambled for a long time, but
No, it's
yeah.
okay. It just dawned on me, and I got slightly emotional. Like you're 22.
hmm
That's brilliant. Because at 22, I was still not eating, starving myself, and trying to be thin. And
mm
I just love that you're like you're 22 and you don't, and it's great. Like this means that the work is trickling down. Because I
Yeah,
didn't start thinking about this stuff till I was in my 30s. Like
right.
well into my 30s. I think I'm 35, 30. I don't even know. I don't want to know my age anymore. Age is up, age is up. Ah! But I love that. I
Yeah,
really love that you're 22 and the stories are changing. And that
yes.
means that like with your help, it's gonna be even sooner for the next crop of girls or women or whatever the term is, you know? I
I
love that.
I feel like
So
incredibly fortunate to be as young as I am and have had just like really amazing
yeah.
people pave the way for me to love myself right now and to have access to clothing and to have access to all other kinds of things that fat people have not had access to in the past. Yeah.
Well, thank you. And I just wanted to remind everyone listening that always, if you have stories about your body or who you are, please go to afatperspective.com. It's a website, and share. Like, I really believe, and I'll say this every single episode to the end of time, that we will heal our society and ourselves through the sharing of our stories and experiences. So I'd love to hear from people listening about your body and what your journey was like. And Ryan, thank you so much for sharing yourself with us today. And please keep being the representation that we all needed and still need.